The Assembly will please come to order. The Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Assemblywoman Anderson. Assemblywoman Benitez-Thompson. Assemblywoman Bilbray-Axelrod. Assemblywoman Black. Assemblywoman Brown-May. Assemblywoman Carlton. Assemblywoman Cohen. Assemblywoman Considine. Assemblywoman Dickman. Assemblywoman Duran. Assemblyman Ellison. Assemblyman Flores. Assemblyman Frierson. Assemblywoman Gonzalez. Assemblywoman Gorlow. Assemblyman Hafen. Assemblywoman Hanson. Assemblywoman Hardy. Assemblywoman Howdigi. Assemblywoman Kasama. Assemblywoman Krasner. Assemblyman Levitt. Assemblywoman Martinez. Assemblywoman Marzola. Assemblyman Matthews. Assemblyman MacArthur. Assemblywoman Brittany Miller. Assemblyman C.H. Miller. Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Assemblywoman Nguyen. Assemblyman O'Neill. Assemblyman Orlicker. Assemblywoman Peters. Assemblyman Roberts. Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong. Assemblywoman Thomas. Assemblywoman Titus. Assemblywoman Tolles. Assemblywoman Torres. Assemblyman Watts. Assemblyman Wheeler. Assemblyman Frierson. Assemblywoman Kasama. Speaker Pro Tem Yeager.
Here. Assemblywoman Benitez-Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. May the record reflect that Assemblyman Frierson and Assemblywoman Kasama are absent excused. We have 40 members present.
The record shall reflect there are 40 present, 2 excused. There is a quorum. The Assembly will please rise for the prayer by Pastor Nate Johnson, The Crossing, Las Vegas.
I'd like to start our time today on the idea of gratitude. This past week, I learned that the emotion attached with gratitude is joy. If you want more joy in your life, your workplace, your household, or your kids' life, practice the discipline of being grateful. At the end of this week, what are you grateful for? Let's end our week with that thought today. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, how amazing is it that we get to start our day pausing and bringing all of our worries and our stresses and concerns to you. We're thankful that you are completely obsessed with each and every one of us, that what we care about, that you care about. We're all so grateful to be in the same space with one another. We're grateful that we have air in our lungs and that the sun came up to be able to serve one another, our community, and the ones that we care about. Let us be hyper aware of what we're grateful for, no matter how today goes. We pray these things in His name. Amen.
Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Order of Business 2, reading and approval of the journal.
Carson City, Thursday, March 18,
Mr. Speaker
2021.
Pro Tem.
Assemblywoman Benitez-Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move to dispense with further reading of the journal and authorize the Speaker, Chief Clerk, and Speaker Pro Tem to make any necessary corrections or additions.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Order of Business 4, reports of standing committees.
Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, your Committee on Education, to which was referred Assembly Bill 57, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation amended to pass as amended. Shannon Bilbray-Axelrod, Chair. Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, your Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, to which were referred Assembly Bill 150, Senate Bill 29, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with recommendation due pass. Danielle Monroe Moreno, Chair. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Health and Human Services, to which was referred Assembly Bill 191, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with recommendation due pass. Rochelle T. Wynn, Chair. Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, your Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections, to which was referred Assembly Bill 1, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with recommendation due pass. Brittany Miller, Chair.
Order of Business 8, motions, resolutions, and notices.
Assembly Joint Resolution 13, introduced by Assemblyman Wheeler et al., proposing to amend the Nevada Constitution to require the legislature to canvass the vote for certain elections and certify results of such elections.
Assemblywoman Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move to refer AJR 13 to the Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Notice of exemption, March 19, 2021, the Fiscal Analysis Division pursuant to Joint Standing Rule 14.6 has determined the eligibility for exemption of Assembly Bills 194, 195, 232, 247, 248, 272, and 273. Sarah Kaufman, Fiscal Analysis Division.
Order of Business 9, first reading and reference of bills.
Assembly Bill 339, introduced by Assemblywoman Wynn, an act relating to crimes authorizing a justice court or municipal court to establish a program of treatment for a defendant who is charged with misdemeanor battery, which constitutes domestic violence, enacting various provisions pertaining to the program of treatment, eliminating the prohibition of plea bargaining by a prosecuting attorney if a person is charged with battery, which constitutes domestic violence, and providing other matters properly laid thereto.
Assemblywoman Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move to refer Assembly Bill 339 to your Committee on Judiciary.
Without objection, so referred.
Assembly Bill 340, introduced by Assemblyman Matthews, an act relating to administrative regulations requiring agencies to determine the economic impact of proposed regulations, prohibiting agencies from adopting certain regulations that will have an economic impact without legislative and executive approval, and providing other matters properly laid thereto.
Assemblyman Flores.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move that Assembly Bill 340 be referred to your hardworking Committee on Government Affairs.
Without objection, so referred.
Assembly Bill 341, introduced by Assemblyman Yeager, an act relating to cannabis, providing for the licensure and regulation by the Cannabis Compliance Board of Cannabis Consumption Lounges, setting forth certain requirements for the licensure of cannabis consumption lounges, setting forth certain requirements for the operation of retail cannabis consumption lounges and independent cannabis consumption lounges, requiring the board to adopt regulations establishing certain fees, revising provisions relating to certain cannabis products, revising provisions relating to the consumption of cannabis in a public place, revising provisions relating to the excise tax on retail sales of cannabis and cannabis products, exempting a cannabis consumption lounge from certain provisions prohibiting a person from maintaining a place for the purpose of unlawfully selling, giving away, or using any controlled substance, and providing other matters properly laid thereto.
Assemblywoman Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move to refer Assembly Bill 341 to your Committee on Judiciary.
Without objection, so referred.
Assembly Bill 342, introduced by the Committee on Judiciary, an act relating to offenders, revising the frequency of the review of standards adopted by the State Board of Parole Commissioners relating to the granting and revocation of parole, revising provisions relating to the program of lifetime supervision of sex offenders, and providing other matters properly laid thereto.
Assemblywoman Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move to refer Assembly Bill 342 to your Committee on Judiciary.
Without objection, so referred. Order of Business 11, second reading and amendment of bills.
Assembly Bill 103, introduced by Assemblywoman Martinez and Considine, an act relating to historic preservation, requiring provisions relating to obtaining a permit to excavate a site on private lands that is known to be a prehistoric Indian burial site, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
The bill is ordered to general file. Order of Business 12, general file and third reading.
Assembly Bill 12, introduced by the Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, an act relating to transportation, revising the qualifications for a Deputy Director of the Department of Transportation, moving the position of Chief Engineer of the Department from the classified service to the unclassified service of the state, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 2, end of Section 2, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks? Assemblywoman Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Assembly Bill 12 revises the qualifications for a Deputy Director of the Department of Transportation. Specifically, the bill clarifies that the positions to which the minimum qualifications of 2 years of administrative experience apply as any Assistant Director of the Department or the Chief Engineer, and changes the alternative experience qualifications to a minimum of 15 years of progressively responsible experience in engineering or project management. This bill also moves the position of Chief Engineer from classified to unclassified state services, and the bill is effective upon passage and approval.
Are there any further remarks? Assemblywoman Titus.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I want to, under the abundance of caution and full disclosure, acknowledge that the person presenting this bill, Mr. Mortensen, is my son-in-law. And however, this makes no difference in our family or his role as a deputy administrator, so I will be voting on this bill.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Any further remarks on Assembly Bill 12? Seeing no further remarks, the Chief Clerk will open the roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 40 ayes, 0 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority, I declare it passed and ordered to the Senate.
Assembly Bill 41, introduced by the Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, an act relating to vehicles revising provisions governing the application and issuance of certain permits by the Department of Transportation for the operation of certain vehicles, authorizing the Department to grant a waiver from the maximum width of oversized manufactured or mobile homes or similar structures, revising provisions governing the measurement of the height, length, and width of certain vehicles carrying loads, and providing other matters properly thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 6, end of Section 6, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks? Assemblywoman Brown-May.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Assembly Bill 41 revises various provisions governing the operation of certain oversized vehicles. Specifically, the bill clarifies how the dimensions of certain vehicles are to be determined, authorizes an applicant for a permit to move certain vehicles or structures to request a waiver from the Department of Transportation from the current maximum vehicle width limitation, and removes a requirement that applications to the Department for movement permits for oversized vehicles be in writing. This bill is effective upon passage and approval.
Are there any further remarks? Seeing none, the Chief Clerk will open the roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 40 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent excused. The bill having received a constitutional majority, I declare it passed and ordered to the Senate.
Assembly Bill 53, introduced by the Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, an act relating to transportation, revising provisions relating to the establishment by the Department of Transportation of a system of communication for members of the general public to report and receive certain information, and providing other matters properly relating thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 2, end of Section 2, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks? Assemblyman Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Assembly Bill 53 makes discretionary the current requirement that the Department of Transportation establish a system of communication for members of the general public to report emergencies and receive information concerning driving conditions. Bill is effective July 1st of this year.
Are there any further remarks? Seeing none, the Chief Clerk will open the roll. Is there anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 40 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent excused. The bill having received a constitutional majority, I declare it passed and ordered to the Senate.
Assembly Bill 95, introduced by the Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections, an act relating to public lands, revising the membership of the Legislative Committee on Public Lands, and providing other matters properly relating thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 3, end of Section 3, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks? Assemblywoman Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Assembly Bill 95 adds one more member to the Legislative Committee on Public Lands to represent tribal governments. This member is to be appointed by the Legislative Commission upon the recommendation of the Intertribal Council of Nevada. This bill is effective on July 1st, 2021.
Are there any further remarks? Seeing none, the Chief Clerk will open the roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 40 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent excused. The bill having received a constitutional majority, I declare it passed and ordered to the Senate.
Assembly Bill 123, introduced by Assemblyman Howdigy and Yeager, an act relating to special license plates, imposing additional fees for the issuance and renewal of the special license plates, indicating support for the Vegas Golden Knights hockey team, requiring the distribution of the additional fees to the Vegas Golden Knights Foundation for certain purposes, and providing other matters properly relating thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks? Assemblywoman Howdigy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Temp. Assembly Bill 123 imposes an additional $10 fee for the issuance and renewal of a special license plate in support of the Vegas Golden Knights franchise of the National Hockey League for support of the Vegas Golden Knights Foundation to assist with its work supporting nonprofit and charitable organizations. Order of Business 15, Mr. Speaker.
Order of Business 15.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Temp. I rise today in support of our very own Vegas Golden Knights, their foundation, and Assembly Bill 123. 9 days after the tragedy of 1 October 2017, the Golden Knights played their inaugural opening game at T-Mobile Arena. The Golden Knights were just what our city needed during those dark days. They united our city, brought hope to our city, and provided an escape that helped us heal. Since then, the Vegas Golden Knights and their foundation have been loyal supporters of our first responders, donating $1 million to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. But it didn't stop there. They have worked enthusiastically every day to inspire our community. The foundation works to secure the future of the Las Vegas military, first responders, and their families, especially those who have suffered a sacrifice for the greater good. They have donated bikes to families in need during the holidays, hosted Thanksgiving food drives, built homes for our local veterans, awarded grants to teachers to upgrade their virtual teaching technology. They have established a grant program that gives $50,000 to 5 charities that fall within each of the foundation's pillars: health and wellness, education, military, hunger and homelessness, and youth. And these grants are awarded twice a year. In all, they have donated close to $3 million to our community, including donating $1.2 million to those affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. What does a $10 renewal cost on the license plate mean to the foundation, who currently collects $0 from their special license plate? It means $500,000 on the 49,000 license plates currently out in Nevada, so that they can continue their good work in our community. And colleagues, if someone doesn't want to pay the $10, they simply choose a standard license plate. I want to thank the 10 members of the committee who all voted unanimously in favor of this bill to get it here today. Your vote for Assembly Bill 123 today means a vote for law enforcement and first responders, a vote for education, and a vote for homelessness. Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Temp.
Are there any further remarks? Assemblywoman Titus.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. Order of Business 15.
Order of Business 15.
Thank you. I am an avid hockey fan. I wear my Vegas Golden Knights pins many days, and my husband will not feed me dinner if I'm not there in time to watch that first puck drop when I get home. Tonight would be a perfect example. However, I have to rise in opposition of AB 123. After the tumultuous year of pandemic, where Nevada fell from the lowest unemployment rate in the nation to the highest unemployment rate, charging Nevada families an additional surprise renewal fee that they cannot opt out of if they still want to keep that plate does not help the economic situation. We absolutely encourage those with the means to continue to donate to charity. But a fee increase when we currently rank at the bottom of the nation in unemployment is irresponsible. Most Nevadans probably were not hockey fans until our first professional sports team, the Golden Knights, had the gripping, awe-inspiring Cinderella year that captured our imaginations and galvanized our state, and we thank them for that. Members of this body, there are 48,322 Golden Plate Knights out there. We will not dictate that they pay more for being fans and proud Nevadans. Republicans stand firm in our creed as defenders of the taxpayers and working men and women of our state. I urge you to vote no on this bill. Thank you.
Are there any further remarks? Seeing none, the Chief Clerk will open the roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 24 ayes, 16 nays, 2 absent excused. The bill having failed to receive a constitutional two-thirds majority, I declare it lost. Assemblywoman Carlton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Order of business number 8.
Order of business 8.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Having voted on the prevailing side, I move that Assembly reconsider the vote by where Assembly Bill 123 failed.
Assemblywoman Carlton has moved that the Assembly reconsider the vote whereby Assembly Bill 123 failed. Any remarks? Seeing none, I'll take a vote on the motion. All those in favor of reconsidering the vote whereby Assembly Bill 123 was lost, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Nay. Motion carries. Assemblywoman Carlton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move that Assembly Bill 123 be placed on the Chief Clerk's desk.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. We will now go to Order of Business 15. Assemblywoman Wynn.
Thank you. Order of business 15.
Order of Business 15.
This past week has been incredibly difficult for myself, for my family, and other members of the AAPI community. Nevada is home to one of the largest and fastest growing AAPI communities in the country. We are your neighbors, local business owners, doctors, lawyers, legislators, and other colleagues. The issue of racism against the Asian community is not a statewide issue. It is a national crisis. Since the start of this pandemic, there have been more than 3,800 racially motivated hate incidents targeting Asian Americans, including my own family members in California who work in a nail salon. This is due to misinformation, racist rhetoric, and displaced fear. This must stop. AAPIs across the country in Nevada have shared that they have been verbally abused, harassed, and blamed for this virus despite being a global health crisis. Although many Asian Americans are born and raised in the United States, these incidents bring our identities into question and perpetuate the idea that we aren't American as our neighbors. In a time that we are all bearing a pandemic together, it is senseless to cause more grief to our communities than already are feeling and being weighed down by this global crisis. We must hold people accountable for their hurtful actions while also uplifting each other during a time where we have all experienced loss. Hate has no home here in Nevada, and each of us must do our part to stop hate. Thank you.
Assemblywoman Black.
Order of Business 15.
Order of Business 15.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. The Biden border crisis continues to get worse by the day, with no end in sight. Not only are the Biden administration's open-door policies allowing human trafficking, drug smuggling, and potential terrorism into our country.
Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you. We refer to officials by their official title.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson. She is correct. Assemblywoman Black, if you could refer by the official title, appreciate it.
Will do. But there are reports that as many as half of those coming here illegally have the COVID-19 virus. Worse, many are being allowed in without even being tested. Meanwhile, thousands of unaccompanied children are being crammed into holding facilities with no way to contact their families to let them know where they are or that they're safe. At the same time, many classrooms in Nevada are still closed to our own children, and the public is still banned from coming into this building. There is no science to back up the idea that open borders and closed classrooms make any sense whatsoever. It's time to secure our borders again. It's time to reopen Nevada 100%. It's time to let all of our children back into our schools full time, and it's time to let the people back into the people's house. Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Assemblyman Levitt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I would like to add my voice to the countless others, both in Nevada and around the nation, who have stood up and denounced violence, threats, and prejudice that's happening around our country against the Asian American and Pacific Islander community. Nevada has the highest percentage of Asian Americans in the nation. Many have called Nevada home longer than much of our transient population, some since our state's inception. I also do not believe that Nevada should participate or support in any lawsuits that would work to unduly or negatively affect the Asian American community. They are our friends, neighbors, co-workers, and family. The Assembly Republican Caucus denounces, in the strongest sense of the term, any prejudice against our Asian American community. Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem.
Assemblywoman Gorlow.
Thank you, Speaker Pro Tem. Although our beloved speaker is not here today, I did want to take a moment and wish him a very wonderful happy birthday and a speedy recovery. And we look forward to seeing him soon.
Thank you. Do we have any other order of business 15? Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Seeing no other business before us, I would move that the Assembly stand adjourned until Monday, March 22nd, 2001 at the hour of 11:30 a.m.
Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson has moved that the Assembly stand adjourned until Monday, March 22nd, 2021 at the hour of 11:30 a.m. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned.
Health and Human Service Committee members, your committee is starting right after floor, so